Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Bunny Show Live. I am your resident sex expert, Bunny, and today I have this sexy man here with me. You guys know him. This is Worth Playboy, and he's very hot. So I'm excited that he's on the show with me today. Because what better topic to have you on the Bunny Show Live than the topic of making sure that life does not get boring at all stages of relationship. And he doesn't think that he's good at this, but he actually is. So,
and I've been aware of it for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think I'd do a great job of it, but we're good at coaching.
When in doubt, just coach.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, I do remember when we were very early stages dating and you're like, I am not good at relationship. That is not my thing. Now, granted, this is also something that you say to keep rotation girls from getting too serious and all of that. But you were very adamant that like relationship and kind of the monotony of it was not interesting to you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a real misconception about all stages of relationship. In whether it's just dating, whether it's running a rotation, whether it's dating, and all of it is people don't want things to get boring.
Right.
Boredom kills all kinds of relationships, whether it's professional relationships, whether it's romantic, even relationships with kids. When you aren't stimulated, you don't want to do it.
And I mean, we say this: the number one sin in attraction and seduction is being boring.
Yes.
Because girls live boring lives by design.
Yeah.
It's very simple stuff. But if you can bring some excitement and unpredictability and a little bit of adventure, girls don't need a lot.
No, it doesn't take much.
They're not that big into risk taking. Then they're interested.
Yeah.
It's like in business. A guy that I followed for years, Dan Kennedy, he said the number one sin in marketing is to be boring. I mean, in that, you're attracted to cars that are exciting. You're attracted to businesses that are exciting and business people, and it pervades everything you do.
Yeah.
And I'll balance this because this is the first objection that we always get, and I'll overcome this right now. We don't mean you have to be a dancing monkey,
no,
or an entertainer, or tap dance, or be a weirdo, or be a joke. Because there's very serious men that watch our programs and take advice from us, and it's not in that vein.
No,
it's to be interesting, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be a clown.
We're not looking for anyone to be the court jester.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. So let's talk. I genuinely want to go through kind of all the stages of relationship.
Okay.
Because everyone's coming from a different angle and a different stage themselves.
And it changes.
It definitely changes. So let's start with, we were just talking as we went live, we were talking about like high school, college age, like when you're kind of at the stage when getting a girlfriend really means like just going out and having somebody to go to parties with, but isn't necessarily seeking marriage or for the most part, it's not heavily involved. It's practice for how to deal with the opposite sex.
Exactly. That's true.
So what are your suggestions, because you have good suggestions as to how to keep things lively? And
for men in your teens and 20s, it's really about you being interesting.
Yeah.
You developing your personal skills, and in that process being interesting. We always encourage guys to do sports.
Yes.
To do God bless, I've been weightlifting since 14, but talking about it and doing it is somewhat boring. And it's very boring to women. So, sports, organized sports that can develop character.
Yeah.
Any type of programs like Boy Scouts, fraternities, ROTC, any type of group Not necessarily, even I would say even like some of the hipster sports like kickball,
Yeah.
wiffle ball and all that. Yeah, it's really a social event plus
Yeah.
activity, but it gives you somewhere to be and something to do and a group of people to do it with.
And the intramural stuff in college.
Yeah.
What a great social outlet without the pressure of.
Yeah, really it does come down to developing yourself and being involved in activities.
Yes.
Because I guess this is counterbalances what we've seen, which is guys that get into that video game and drinking in pot loop where they're just doing that because you're never going to meet anybody. And there's a certain segment of girls that will kind of like hang out. They're not going to hang out forever.
Right.
And it's, it's not a good fit. And that's, I think, what has really hamstrung a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Is they're having trouble with girls, but they're really not doing anything interesting either.
Yeah.
So because weightlifting will go a certain distance. It teaches you a lot.
Yeah.
But in and of itself, it's not a great, conversation starter.
Right.
So.
Well, and like you're talking about with the pot smoking video game, drinking loop of high school and college.
Yeah.
I think that's the equivalent of grown men going to a sports bar with their buddies. Like, generally, yes, they're out. Generally, yes, they're out with people. But they're not actually socializing with women.
Right.
They're not actually practicing. They're not actually, growing interesting hobbies or habits.
No.
That's what they do.
You can go, and I've had guys that we start working with in their 30s who spent their 20s in bars and clubs. But I said, well, what would you do? They said, well, I would drink with my friends.
Yeah.
And then never approach any women.
So it's social. People think that
you're out and about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's nothing interesting. There's no interaction. You're not learning how to talk to the opposite sex.
No. And it really is like golf or like some of these sports where you actually kind of need the daily practice. I mean, you can tell that there are some sports and some activities, and talking to girls, I think, is among them. You have to kind of keep those skills sharp so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you are single or every time you are looking for a date for an event or whatever the case may be. You don't want to have to go through that awkward phase over and over and over again. So staying interesting keeps things from being boring, even at this beginner stage, this very beginner stage of high school, college, where you're starting to kind of just practice mingling with women, with girls.
There's two things here. Like I say, every attractive girl, say hi to every attractive woman you see. Every age, no matter as you're passing by, get used to interacting with women.
Perfect.
And you'll be more comfortable doing so.
Yeah.
Some won't acknowledge you, some will say hi. It doesn't matter because all you're doing is making yourself comfortable, making eye contact and a head nod, and
It's not for them. It's for you.
It's for you. And then developing your social circle over time.
Yes.
And some guys are naturals at this, and some guys are like, I need to work on this.
Yeah.
And you have to actually work. And that's where getting involved in different activities gives you, girls that may not be interested in you will pull for you.
Yeah.
They'll put girls in front of you, that they think should, hook up with you if you're out and about. And they get to know you. They're like, he's not right for me, or they have a boyfriend.
Yeah. I'd date him if I were single.
Exactly. I would, so I can't, so you're going to have to.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that. Having a social circle, and it goes a long way to just like meeting. Girls have more confidence in your abilities. When they know that you have a friends group that's mixed. And again, unfortunately, if all you are is online, and in your apartment or dorm, you're not going to meet a lot of people.
No.
So you kind of have
it's very limited.
Yeah, it's very social circle is truly social.
Socially driven.
Yeah.
And it keeps you from being boring.
Exactly. If you're, even you just need a buddy, and you guys can get out and about and start building that together.
Yeah.
So it's something that pays off down the road. And a lot of these that social circles develop in college. There are men in their 40s and 50s that still do business with their college roommate.
It's true.
He was their initial investor.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a lot of ladies I know in their 50s, 60s, who's their best friend? They're the girl that was their college roommate. It goes a long way. It's that right time to build relationships.
Well, and then also as you get into the next phase of life, as you start on your first job, you open your first business, whatever the case may be, those interim years kind of after you go through high school, college, but then you're not quite like full on adult yet, but you feel like you're trying to work that way. You know, you are an adult, but you're not, you know. It's good practice to already have those social skills intact, because the second that you go into your first career move, all things go out the window.
There will never be a better time or place for you to meet people than college.
Yeah.
And you hear it again and again, and they get to their first job, and even if there's a lot of new graduates in that job, your ability to connect is like completely diminished.
It is.
You know, you guys are not you're competing.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not on the same page, and you don't have the same schedule. You know, so much goes into it that all of a sudden your social net completely disappears.
It does.
So
unless you actively are already actively practicing those skills and keep it going.
And with that, I mean, there's so many things that are socially driven. And one thing that guys don't mention that are in this age group, this 20s, early 30s, they use Meetup a lot.
Is that still a thing? Is Meetup still a thing?
They don't mention it, but they go to a lot of Meetups.
I wanted to, I mean, the actual app Meetup, but then also Meetups, like social, because I always wanted to like attend something from the Meetup app when it was a thing. Is it still a thing?
It is.
Because I thought that was the coolest concept ever, but I never wanted to do it alone.
These extremely social guys that I know that have developed their skills, they don't mention it because I think it's like an afterthought or just like something they did right off the bat.
Yeah.
And they don't ever think about it.
Right.
They go, that's and I go, do you use Meetup? And they're like, oh yeah, a lot. You know, it's a major.
That's interesting.
It's like a major brick or a major cornerstone to their social life.
But practicing from high school, college, going into those first career moves that you make go a long way in keeping things from getting stale.
Exactly. All this is to keep you interested.
Yeah, it's all to keep you interesting. Make no mistake, all of these things are connected to the overreaching topic of today, keeping things interesting. If you spend your college years doing nothing but getting drunk, high, and video gaming, or just hanging with your bros all the time, or only doing stuff that is same sex, if you are a heterosexual male, then you are not going to be interesting to the opposite sex, period. The exception to that, I would say, would be something military based, because even though there are females, you know, there's not as much mixing, you know, in those beginning stages. So I would say that's only because then you get a lot of interesting experiences and things to talk about, and you just get hardened in a good way.
Yeah, and you're either working or you're playing.
Yeah.
You know, and just talking about college, you know, the last thing we'll probably mention about, like fraternities, talking about guys that get isolated. Fraternities, they know that guys will like just hang out at the house and drink and video game. So that's why they have mixers and they have events that you got to have a date. You got to go. It's not optional.
Yeah.
You know, and so that forces you to interact with girls, and you know, they put you in the right position. But again, it's who you hang around with. And the reason we kind of encourage you to hit some of these other social groups is because birds of a feather flock together.
Right.
And you're going to be around other men and women that are more social than average. It's just like why people, once the kids arrive or they get married, they join a country club, because it's people that are moving up in society and want to be interacting and social with other people.
Or get involved in a church.
Exactly.
Things of that nature, that where they are around other people that forces them to be social. That's the real reason behind so many of the things as adults that we do, is to force us to have something to do.
Yeah.
You know.
It's true.
And it helps keep us from being boring.
And there's all kinds of benefits to social support.
Yeah.
But again, most of this just keeps you out of your head, and it keeps you out of in front of the TV, or
isolation is not healthy.
No, and guys fall into that real fast.
Yeah.
Really easy and really fast.
Girls tend to fall into isolation, not by choice, because they're broken up with, or they don't have anyone to go and do anything with, or they don't force the issue with people around them to go and do stuff with. Their girls all have boyfriends or whatever, so they don't have any. Guys put themselves in isolation more often than not. They could go out, they don't want to. They had a shit week at work, they're tired, they don't want to. Or, they might run into, ex-girlfriend A, B, or C, they don't want to. Like, what are some of the things that keep men isolated? What would you say?
Well, number one is money.
Yeah.
When guys are running into financial problems,
yeah,
only really the hardcore. I mean, it becomes all consuming.
Sure.
If they have a shit job that they're just meeting the bills, it's very slim pickings.
Sure.
What you can do.
Yeah.
And it's an easy excuse. And then when you're older, if you're, in a job that isn't paying you as well, you're just aggravated. Yeah. And if you're running your own business, it just takes all the fun out of everything. It's a fun suck.
I think this is getting personal.
No, but it's true. I mean, we know that. I mean, that's where you get like in your 40s and 50s, and you've been through the good times, you've been through the bad times,
you've ridden the fiscal roller coaster of business success.
Right.
And
I think the first thing that goes is the want to socialize, or the want to get out and about and do stuff and pursue their interests when business goes bad, because you have to get that thing right-sided, or, especially for like married men.
Yeah.
Or everything goes down the drain.
There's a lot of people relying on you. And I think that's one of the things that people don't talk about enough in building your own business, is as you build and you become more successful and more people are relying on you
all the time.
The pressure, you have employees, you have clients, whatever the case may be, you build, and it just becomes more and more pressure on your shoulders.
Right.
So that the slim times do become harder to roll with, and you feel more and more isolated.
Right. And guys can do isolation better.
Yes, absolutely. But it's not any more healthy.
No. Yeah. In fact, it's just like sometimes, and Dan Kennedy again, he says, even when your business is going bad, go to a convention.
Yeah.
Go to these events. Go to meetings. Don't isolate yourself. You're not going to learn. You're not going to get out of it sitting in a room by yourself.
Right.
You're not going to think your way out of it. You kind of have to get out and get some other ideas. And it really carries over into everything. You just have to be good at compartmentalizing. And it was hard for me, but I learned. I mean, the bad time's going to stick around no matter what you're doing. So you can go ahead and get out.
The good times don't last forever. The bad times don't last forever.
That's true.
But that does bring us, I think that's a really good segue into kind of that next phase of relationship that we don't want to be boring, that we don't want to allow to be stale. Because about this time of life is also when people are dating. And they're dating with more of a purpose.
Yes.
They're dating to run a rotation. They're dating to find a wife. They're dating to date adult women for the first time in their lives, But what I find more often than not is, I'm just gonna say this. I'm just gonna say it, and you guys can either be mad and hang up, or, but it's absolutely, if you're bored in any kind of relationship, it's your fault. Because men run the show, and we're going to go into that a little bit more, but men run the show. So if you're bored, I'm glad you're here, because we're going to help kind of guide you through that and make you unboring it's
I was excited to find out about this than anybody.
whatever.
Because I would, it's funny. Let's bear. It's like a debate. It's like
He said, she
point
said.
kind of point. It's a lot easier when you have an interesting girl.
Yeah.
You're pretty interesting and high energy. And a lot of these guys, they're dragging a dope. I mean, there's girls that are low energy. But again, I don't think the girls put as much pressure on him to be interesting.
Yeah.
And to not, because she's not easily bored.
Sure.
I mean, and it's just a different dynamic.
Yeah.
So it does matter. And I don't know how much they counsel people like to find kind of like your same social acumen
Right.
when you're dating, because guys that want to stay home, and this is just an example because it can be the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And women that are high energy and want to be out and about and socialize,
Yeah.
then they get married.
And they're always at odds.
Yeah, and they either get good at compromising, but the people that we see that seem to have the most fun, and this is just anecdote, seem to be on the same page.
Yeah, I agree.
They're either social or they're not as social. And, and there's different seasons in your life.
Yeah.
We'll be getting to that too in this. But the initial stages, it's they get to know you and you are out and about.
Yeah. But I think it's very easy that once you are, whether it's a rotation and I'd like to talk kind of both.
Okay.
Whether it's running a rotation or whether you're dating one girl at a time, it's very easy for couples in general, but male led almost always, to kind of slip into, once the initial attraction
Excitement
settles in, you literally start like having a news cycle of sitting on the couch on Saturday nights instead of doing something, or Netflix and chilling every single night, or any of these things that just become, at first they're nice. They're like a nice little break because it's the difference between the pressure of going out and doing things and being out and being seen, and the staying at home, the doing things together at home, the cooking dinner at home or whatnot is comfortable. It's like, oh, now we're in a relationship. Now we're dating. It makes it feel kind of that next level, like you're practice marriaging. I mean, that's really what it is. It's like when you stay at home and settle in, it's very much everybody's kind of testing the waters as to what that's like.
Right.
At various levels. But when you're running a rotation, what's the best ways to keep things interesting? I would think it would actually be tricky because, like, you teach and you did, and whenever I met you, I was one of your rotation girls that just worked my way up. I guess because I'm so exciting.
She knocked everybody else out.
I knocked everybody else out of the running. But, you kind of had your system where you took girls to this place, you took girls to this place. Like, how did you keep things interesting?
It's funny. These guys go, man, I can barely manage one girl. I can't imagine managing two or three. Three seems to be the magic number.
I think so.
First of all, you only see each other once a week.
Yeah, that helps.
Two, because you only see each other once a week, it's more of an event. It's more of a break for her. It's a break for you.
Yeah.
So you don't see each other.
Yeah.
The other 6 days of the week. So it kind of keeps things fresh. You tend to go somewhere, do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what makes running a rotation easier than a relationship, because, it's like you're fresh each time you meet up. And for her, how does this benefit a girl? Well, let's say she's gone through a divorce. She's not interested in another long-term relationship right away. She's got kids. She's got a job. This is one night that she can go out and have fun, eat, drink, have sex, and still be home by midnight, and then go to work the next day.
Or not.
Or not, yeah. I mean, but that is, it's an event. It's a break for them too.
Yeah.
And you generally don't do boyfriend-girlfriend stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's not what you're headed to. That's when
Right.
girls start getting kind of confused. Like, they come over and you're like in your shorts and a t-shirt. And,
Exactly.
you know, at most you might like eat at the apartment.
Yeah.
You know, if you're getting your ass kicked at work, or, you know, you can only get back to the apartment or your house with her. The logistics change, but the idea is to keep it casual, you know. And that's why I think running a rotation is easier to keep interesting.
Yeah.
Because you don't talk that much. You don't actually interact as much. And when you guys do get together, you have fun.
Yeah.
You know, you can focus in, and then you don't have to do it all the time. And like Black Dragon, who has been doing this for decades.
Right.
He was going through like the 4 or 5 times he's gotten into an argument with a woman. And each time it was when he had a rotation girl that was just hanging out.
Yeah.
And he was like, I look back and realize that is they need to be doing, if they're just hanging out at the house, they have time to think, time to ferret around, time to find something wrong, some time to get unhappy, and then they're unhappy and you're dealing with it. You gotta like, shoo them out. I mean, but he's like every time.
It makes sense though.
Yeah, it's only when they're sitting around not occupied.
Again, she had time to get bored.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Which is exactly what we're talking about today.
Decide how unhappy she is.
Yeah. Well, she realizes if a girl is just like hanging, like we've talked about once, you know, whether she's over and there comes a snowstorm, you legitimately get trapped, bad weather, you know, traps you. Maybe something goes on with her car. She ends up like kind of hanging out a little bit longer than she usually does. All kinds of things can kind of happen that you don't think will happen. It's not necessarily planned, but then the next thing you know, you've got like, you're having to cancel like your next rotation girl because this rotation girl is still here. Yeah. And that's when you're like, you're trying to do your thing. You know, you're not used to entertaining long term.
No.
So this is weird for you.
Yeah.
And you're kind of flipping out. I think that this happens with a lot of guys where they kind of get in their groove. If they're running a rotation, they kind of get in their groove. And so if something comes up like this and a rotation girl is around a little bit more, it throws everyone off.
Exactly.
So she's picking up on your vibe, you know, your discomfort with this situation. She's dealing with whatever the discomfort is that caused her to be there. But at the same time, she's like, it feels relationshipy to be hanging out.
Yeah.
You know, she's in your sweats and your t-shirt or whatever the case may be. And then it feels more real.
Yeah.
And then she starts to get dissatisfied. So that's where, when this kind of stuff comes up in rotation kind of settings, you've got to kind of have that backup plan and do something.
Yeah.
It's going to be off for both of you, but it's going to be more off if you just sit around.
Yeah, if you let her like stay in one place.
And she has time to think.
Yeah. Because she's only going to think about what she's not getting.
Yeah.
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 That's when girls start, you know, not.
Or I wish we were like this more often.
Oh, yeah.
I wish we could do this
more
often.
You're like, yeah. Or you just leave the room.
You're like, I got to get some air.
Some guys will. They'll just run off.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to go get some milk, and they don't come back. Shh. Just like the door behind you.
Exactly. So the tow truck's going to be here in 30 minutes? Okay, cool. But truly, like, that's when having kind of some backup
stuff,
whether it's Top Golf, whether it's bowling, whether it's pool, whether it's, you know, axe throwing, whether it's pickleball, whatever the case may be, you have a girl's bike, you know, in the storage and you just go for a bike ride, whatever the case may be, don't be boring. Have a backup plan, even when you're running a rotation, in case you end up kind of sticking or having someone stick around a little bit more.
Yep.
It keeps things interesting.
It keeps her from being unhappy.
Yeah. Well, and
all you gotta do is buy a little time.
Exactly. And like this point right here, it helps with the variety of fun and emotion.
Exactly.
Instead of falling into the trap of being boring, which is the kiss of death.
Again, the fun guy gets a lot of sex.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a clown.
Yeah.
But you get better at this. The longer you do it, the more you practice it, it becomes more, you cannot actually kind of feel like when there's a lull, it's time to keep moving,
And another great way is not necessarily to entertain her, but to give her things to do. Now, this is more of a girlfriend role, so it gets a little bit dicey, but depending on kind of what your relationship is, you can, have her go grab groceries. You can have her, I needed to go pick up the dry cleaning, but I'm working on this. Could you just run and do that? Pick yourself up some Starbucks while you're at it. That gets you 2 hours right there, like literally. So there are different ways to make sure that you are keeping the interest up and keeping from being boring, even in running rotation and things like that. Now, before we move on from rotation, what about like the day? You still have a little bit of a daily communication with the girls. You still reach out. You still talk to them by text, by phone, by social media in various ways.
I'm listening. I'm thinking. I'm waiting for this
you
to
just
come.
zoned out.
I'm listening because I can hear it.
Yeah, what are some of the best ways to keep things interesting with your rotation girls, even on the days that you're not in front of them?
Well, you don't have to communicate. That's the thing, like with texting, less is more, even with girls, because you get into like a long text conversation and then you don't do boyfriend, girlfriend stuff with her to the best of your ability. If you like who she is, of course you're going to interact with her.
Yeah.
But every few days, sending her something interesting, or I thought of you. This made me think of you, or like some stupid internet meme. But again, a lot of girls are pretty okay with low levels of communication.
Right.
They've got bosses, they've got ex-husbands, they've got 2 ex-husbands, they've got kids everywhere, mom, mother-in-laws, everybody. They have a lot going on.
Yeah.
So therefore, it doesn't take a lot.
Yeah.
And they'll reach out to you. That's what I've noticed is kind of like once you get the momentum going.
Sure.
And then you engage with them, and then you're off the phone.
Yeah.
You get off the phone.
Yeah.
And they're happy.
Exactly.
Yeah. They'll reach out to you. You'll kind of get an idea.
But then I would say keeping things light. Even if she's reaching out and saying, "I've had a shit day," blah blah blah, and she's trying to kind of use you as an event.
You're not there for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
and it's not good.
Well, you should get your pussy pounded.
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly. Keep it sexual.
Yeah.
Keep it interesting and keep her from being bored.
And she'll laugh and she'll feel better.
Yeah.
And then she won't bother you anymore.
And she'll look forward to being Thursday when it's her day.
Exactly. That's a good call.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, on to dating. So when you're actually, whether you kind of narrow down rotation girls and you're watching for where soul leave his body as we talk. Anyway, when you're in a dating relationship, no matter how you came across it, whether it's from a college girl, whether it's high school that's just keep on going, whether it's a rotation girl who moved her way up, whether it was a coworker that you ended up in a relationship with, some great ways to keep things from getting boring, because it gets boring real fast. And what men tend to do is, as soon as you start dating, you stop dating. It's truly the biggest frustration I would say that women have. And we're as much to blame for it as the guys are, but at the same time, it's all the guys' fault. Because what am I going to say? Oh, get your clothes on. We're going to, the neighborhood bar. No, I'm not going to say that. If you say that, I'll be like, okay, let's go. I'm ready. But so there are different ways to kind of try and keep things from getting too monotonous, making routines become ruts, keeping keeping the sex more interesting and not getting, and I think that it's more like as you get into a relationship, whether you're just dating or moving towards marriage or married, keeping the sex interesting goes a long way in keeping the relationship interesting and fresh and protecting from getting stale. So what are some of your thoughts on that?
I think it's, I mean, just like you said, I mean, the relationship is a bit harder, and it's a momentum thing. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, because we worked together, we probably dated for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we worked together.
So literally like 24/7.
Always together.
And we're one of the, I do think that we're kind of a rarity because we actually do better the more time we spend together rather
That's
than
what she told me. It's a joke.
It's a joke.
We do. I mean,
we really do.
Yeah. I mean, if you told me like with my, well, actually with any girl before you, yeah, we're going to work together, play together, everything together. I'd be like, yeah, I'm not.
That is not.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not down with
that. But it's worked. It's
yeah.
worked. Yeah. You know, it works better than it doesn't. And it's a little weird when we changed up our schedule to start working on this, you know.
More. Yeah. It's truly the hiccups only come when we aren't together as much.
Again, I would say, and this is what I see in the dating stuff, is both kind of like they lose momentum, but I don't have this solution because we're kind of like, it's been so long since I was in that position.
Yeah.
Because when you're older, it's like kids and responsibilities and all these other things get in the way sometimes. You know, it just depends.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to get better. My section better is like once you're married. And people are like, what I think is hard is when the kids show up.
Yeah.
I mean, it is tough.
Well, and I guess we could go on and talk about all of it because truly once you're actually in a dating relationship, oftentimes it truly is just marriage practice. It's like, again, it's seeing how you kind of fit together, how you keep things interesting, how you kind of live and coexist together. And then if you can keep doing that all through marriage, I mean, there are certainly plenty of people who have been married 35, 40, 45 years who genuinely are not bored with one another. They've kept things interesting. Now, one thing that I remember my father when I was young, it was in high school, like on one of our morning runs. I remember my dad telling me one of the things that he appreciated so much about my mother was that whenever the children started coming, she made sure that they continued to date. So once at the minimum, you know, twice ideally, they would get out on the town each week and doing something. Maybe it was an event. Maybe it was, an event that did not involve, me. Maybe it was something that was just the two of them, dinner, a movie, whatever the case may be. Now, this was really, I think, probably very difficult for my parents because he was an executive. He worked crazy hours. He was often traveling for work, very similar to what I think it was a little bit ahead of its time because it's very similar to the way that a lot of people don't have a choice but to work now. So it really does take effort and just telling yourself, I'm going to do this every week. We are going to have a date night with my girlfriend, with my wife, with the mother of my children, whatever the case may be, and making it happen. It's no different than you never feel like you have the energy for a workout, but then you make it to the gym and you have a workout and then you're energized. You don't feel like going out. You don't feel like showering and getting dressed. You just got off of work. You're exhausted. It's been a long week. You had this project going, whatever the case may be. You don't feel like trying anymore. But the more you practice exercising that try muscle and actually put in that next level of energy, the easier it gets and the more natural it gets. And then even getting ready to go out, whether you dress in a suit and tie to go to dinner or whether you put on a clean pair of jeans, whatever the case may be, whatever your level is, it gets easier. And then it's just kind of part of what you do. And you have a good time. It reconnects you. Oftentimes you can have some sex afterwards because you've got that reignited, closeness with your girl. Everyone benefits from this, and especially once the kids start coming. And the very best thing that parents can do for their children is to love each other in their presence. And I don't mean like being weird and sexual, but I mean when you are connected and have a strong bond, both sexually and outside of sex, it shows and it comes across in everything that you do. And it keeps things from being boring. That is the key.
2 things will make this easier.
Yeah.
Or harder, or more challenging, I should say. Having family in the area, so you have built-in daycare or child care.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're paying for it. And that's a big problem. A lot of people, and there's always like where girls aren't comfortable leaving the kids, or they don't have someone that they trust to watch the kids.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Most of where the guys that I see that do well with the once a week, they've either go out and find a babysitter.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing, or they already have family in the area.
Yeah.
That makes life easier. And the second thing is having a job or career that's actually conducive to being free. I was in a business that was 5 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And that was Monday through Friday. And Saturday was like till 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're toast. It was not conducive to anything,
right.
Other than, working. And we don't have any family in the area.
Yeah.
So there are things that will make it easier, and there's things that you'll have to overcome or make adjustments. But most employers understand that it's a lot easier to cut you out of there one evening in a week than for you to go through a divorce.
Right.
And then you change jobs or leave.
Right.
Across the country or need more money for child support. So there's all kinds of, ways around it. But there are things that are going to make it easier. And don't just write it off when you go, well, I don't have, my mother doesn't live here, or,
Right.
Don't just throw it out the window. Make it work.
Well, and I will say, I think that that's where a lot of younger couples, young families do get involved with some kind of church organization or something. Even if you don't have the money to hire babysitters, you can kind of trade with each other and allow each other to have a date night.
Support.
There's a lot of that goes on in those circles. And that's where, even if you don't care to be involved, I know a lot of couples or a lot of families where the man is not necessarily the spiritual leader of the household, but so he would rather sit at home and watch, football or whatever on a Sunday morning, or golf or whatever. But her being involved in a local church is huge, because it keeps her interacting with other moms. It keeps things like this where she's going to keep another couple's kid, so that you guys can have a free babysitter, because you have that meeting with Mr. Drysdale later this week. Whatever the case may be, it goes a long way to have, again, it's just a social circle. That's all it is. It's a social circle. But women especially thrive on that social aspect of life. And as the kids come, it's easy to get into a bored, kind of rut if she's not surrounded by family, friends, a social network of some kind.
If you're not where you grew up, in the first kids, there's not really a lot going on the first kids. I remember we moved out to an area that we had not lived in before we had kids. And before Faith showed up, there was no connection to the community.
Right.
Until you start having kids. And I didn't know that until I remember talking to a neighbor. I was like, yeah, we can't meet anybody. They go, well, do you have kids? And we're like, no. And they go, well, that's why.
Yeah. Well, and literally it's once the kids get into school that you kind of have that connection. Exactly. It's like they have to get into school to...
We even the 2-year-old or the 3-year-old or the 4-year-old groups. Sometimes
yeah.
It's, private school, and it's someplace to be and you meet other parents.
Yeah.
You know, but it just depends.
Yeah.
It just depends. But there's different ways of staying connected. Again, you know, having family in the area, because sometimes the mother-in-law will just push you out.
Sure.
They're like, you need to get out of here and go. And that's the families that we've seen that seem to do best, is like have a parent, his or hers, that will step in.
Yeah.
You know,
and understand the importance. You know, I will say kind of what you were talking about with the families in the area can either be a blessing or a curse in some way.
exactly.
Because sometimes the family is such that they almost get offended if you want to do something that's not with them.
Yeah.
They're like, but we're having a barbecue. Why are you not coming? Well, because we're going to go out and we're going to do this together. We've got a concert, or we've got dinner, or we're going to go for a bike ride, or we're going to do anything away from you guys, you know. And so you have to, I think that's where truly the man being the leader of the relationship and of the family goes a long way in setting those boundaries with the extended family.
Yeah.
And saying, tonight we're not going to do that. We just went to your barbecue last weekend. We'll be at Sunday lunch, but tonight so-and-so and I have plans.
Yeah.
Period. Now take this kid so we can go do it.
Well, for a lot of these girls, I mean, they've gone to her family stuff for 27 years, and the first one she misses, like, you know, nobody's happy.
They're losing their mind.
The only person usually will understand is her dad.
Yeah.
You know, he'll be like, yeah, I can see you guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Exactly. But these social networks, whether it's church, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's, you know, extended college support and, you know, friendships that have grown from high school or college, depending on where you are in relation to where you kind of grew up, you have to continue to be active in them. It's not acceptable to have social networks and to have social support and not utilize it, because it's the same with the dating practice. It's the same with the talking to girl practice. It's the same with exercise practice. You have to kind of keep those gears greased. The purpose of having social support is as much to kind of help. You look like you're comatose.
I'm not comatose.
It's as much to force you to get out and to practice these skills and to just keep things going, as it is to have the help whenever you need it, to have a backup babysitter, to have a primary babysitter, whatever the case may be, so that you can get out and keep things from getting boring.
And a cautionary tale is go into these new friendships slowly.
Yes.
Because, you know, if you come out of like high school and college and you're in your 30s or 40s,
it's true.
You have one or two really good friends. It's even harder to find normal people in their 30s and 40s, because you're like, oh, I mean, they look normal on the surface, and then they open their mouth, and you're like, yeah, that ain't gonna work.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. There's a lot of times where if you jump into new friendships or new social groups too quickly, kind of both feet, which is totally what I do, 1000%. I jump in and then I'm like, oh, here I am.
Because you think people are like you.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
They're not.
And then you kind of go, oh, I need to back out.
They've got their own demons and agenda and wants and needs, and you're like, oh, that's not good.
Oh, I'm stuck now.
Yeah.
Now we're going on vacation with these people that we don't like.
That's a bad idea.
But keeping things interesting sexually is a huge factor in keeping things from getting boring. So changing up positions, not always having sex in the same place, not only always having sex in the same part of the house, not always starting the same way. I think this is a huge one that men are pretty fucking terrible at, is starting it. Is just, and I don't just mean the foreplay, although that is a huge factor, but just starting it the same way, saying the same thing. I mean, not you don't do this.
No, I'm just listening.
But I mean, it is. Girls get easily turned off by the same.
Routine.
By routine. So if your phrase that paid, 5 years ago when you first started dating was, hey, you want to show me your new bra? I don't know. I can't even think of anything. But I can't think of guidelines. I don't do that well. But if you always use the same line and it works the first 3 times, so you just use it. You just use it on and on and on. And then the next thing you know, at 5 or 6, it's starting to make her go, yeah. And then by the time you're married, the same line is going, she's like, not tonight. I know you're not going to say that you want to see my bra tonight. Like, after the day I've had, you're not really going to say, whatever the line is. She is bored, and it's a terrible way to have a relationship that's going to be happy and healthy. So starting it differently, having different come-ons, having different ways of just kind of showing your interest to your girl goes a long way. Foreplay steps, no different than changing things up sexually and having different sexual positions. Changing up the foreplay goes a long way in her interest, because otherwise she's going to kind of go along with it if she's agreeable at all, but she's going to be bored to death. And those are the girls who then are like, are you done yet? Okay, because Yellowstone is coming on in a few minutes, because I don't want to miss whatever the case may be. It's absolutely a game changer just to have 5 things, have 5 starters, have 5 different foreplay, things that you aren't, so you're not always going through the same one. Have, 5 different ways. It can be structured still and literally just go through the rotation just like you would any other thing that you're trying to keep interesting and keeping from being boring. Instead of always starting in doggy style, start in doggy style one day, start in missionary one day, start with her bent over the counter in one day, start her sucking your dick one day. Whatever it is, change it up. And that can be routine. You can know that there's a structure to it, but she doesn't catch on, and it keeps things interesting. Now, from a male perspective, I mean, you've been married. You were married for 12 years.
Yeah.
We've been together for almost 6.
Oh my God.
But you've been in other, longer term relationships.
Yeah.
So is this a difficult thing to do? Because I've never known a man, both in my personal experience or vicariously through friends, who didn't just do the same thing every single time and expect it to always be, a mind-blowing sexual experience for her. And she's like, I had this sexual experience 6 years ago.
If I ran into this, I'm not aware of it. Like, most girls don't say anything.
No. Do you, from a male perspective, how hard is it to kind of keep it fresh? Because it works once and then you do it again.
I think it really comes down to time frame. I mean, again, like and we know this from having to be creative in business.
Yeah.
If you're in a time period where you're not creative, you really do have to rely on a routine.
Sure.
And then there are other times where you have more space, you have more bandwidth.
Yeah.
And you can become more spontaneous, as long as it all balances out.
Right.
But I think, what you're describing is where guys like get into a rut for like a couple, and then maybe depression.
Yeah.
They hate their job. I mean, they
may not even like their wife.
Yeah. I mean,
I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, and the women don't make it easy to give a variety.
No.
They want predictable because they want him out of there or whatever. Just not good. But if you have a good average sex life, it really comes down to where you're at in that big frame You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I mean, you're going to go through periods where you're like doing hotel sex and in the car and on the counter. And then, when, like, say you got a sick kid,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Everything just stops.
Yeah.
You might have sex once a week. A lot of it has to come down to keeping the variety going when you do have the bandwidth.
Right.
And then relying on routine when you don't.
And I think there's a lot of guys and girls, but couples, I would say, who, they work until 6 p.m. They get home at 6:30. They eat dinner. They kind of have this routine that's unchangeable. So oftentimes they don't end up getting to even think about having sex until 9, 10 o'clock at night, let's say. There's only so much variety and only so much bandwidth you have left at that time. So maybe then you're checking that box. You're doing things that are playful. Maybe you're, tickling or wrestling around or doing some fun things that kind of connect you with intimacy, even if you don't put the P in the V. But if this is the case, if your schedule is so locked in that this really is the case, even if it's just for a season, then on the weekends, anytime you have a little bit of extra time, even if you don't have any more clarity of thought or creativity, do it at different times. Change things up. Put the kids in front of the television for a few minutes. Like whatever the case may be, to make sure that you're adding variety, even if any other day of the week you don't have any room for variety.
Yeah. The closet floor gets a lot of use when you have kids.
True.
Because they got to get through 2 locked doors.
Yeah, it goes a long way. I've never fucked in a closet floor.
You never have?
I never
You
had
never
to.
You never had enough small children in the house. How's that?
I sure did.
I know.
No, but I remember in a book.
She has a rule here.
I do have a rule. So there was a book that I picked up probably my very first week of ever even being married. So long before kids were even in the picture yet. And one of the things it said was one of the first lessons that you teach your kids is if mommy and daddy's door is closed, you don't open it. I always say blood, fire, broken bones were the only, those are the emergencies that kids are allowed to interrupt whatever's going on. Even if you're cooking dinner or whatever, if they come bursting through the back door because they, need something right then, I'd be like, blood, fire, broken bones. Any of those other, if it's anything else, it's not that important right this second. I'm in the middle of making dumplings. Like I don't have time to get there. But I mean, my kids learn that if the bedroom door is closed, you don't just open it.
Yeah. It keeps a lot of trauma. Kids don't need to walk in on you.
Sure. But so many families have kind of an open door policy that a closed door doesn't really mean closed door. And
come on in.
Ridiculous.
It does. For a lot of kids, it's just like curiosity. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm cut off.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it ruins everything. It's a bone killer. It's a libido killer.
The kid gets that burnt in his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants or needs that.
So a great way to keep the boredom to a minimum when you're in relationship, whether you have kids or not, is to any time that you actually have some control over your schedule and have some flexibility, take advantage of it. Even if, and we say this pretty often, sex play doesn't always have to be penetration. It doesn't always have to be the full act. It doesn't always have to be start to finish, but keeping sex play, keeping innuendo going, keeping sex jokes going, filling each other up, in like under the table, whatever the case is, anything that you can do to keep that sexual connection high, it goes leaps and bounds over anything else in keeping boredom from happening in a relationship. Because when the sexual connection is strong and exciting and keeps things lit, literally anything else in life can be as boring as possible. Like, it doesn't even have to be exciting. It can be as routine and structured as you like, as you need. But if the sex is hot, if the sex is varied, if it's exciting, and you know, 9 times out of 10, it's pretty damn good, everyone wins. And everything else runs more smoothly.
And a lot of this goes all the way back to the beginning. When you're dating, you choose people that are somewhat on the same level as you. If you're a high sex drive guy, to yourself, and you are with a girl who considers herself asexual or low sex drive, it's probably best to move on.
Sure.
You know, because this is not something that resolves itself and they're not going to change. So early on is when you solve these problems before.
Right.
You know, and if you have a high sex, you find somebody that's in the same boat.
Yeah.
You know.
And I will say, I feel like girls can be taken up a notch or two, you know, in sexual interest. So even if they are a relatively low libido, asexual, you know, not terribly sexual girl, you know, there's an old phrase that she just hasn't had good sex yet, or hasn't had great sex yet. There is some truth to that.
Right.
Maybe she's been bored. Maybe she's had bad experiences. Maybe the lover that she's been with just wasn't all that exciting to her. Not that he wasn't good. He wasn't exciting to her. So there is a level of truth to, if, you know, if she doesn't have a high interest in sex, it could literally just be she hasn't had great sex yet. And that's up to you to give her. But I do think that girls can be raised a couple of notches at least. You're not going to take, though, a completely asexual girl and make her a sex fiend without, like, I don't know, drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, that never happens.
Yeah. It's like Royce said, if you find a girl, if you're dating a girl that talks about her avoidance of sex, doesn't like blowjobs, doesn't care for sex, cut her loose.
It's true.
Just because your sex life is too important to leave up to risk, you know. And Bunny does have a good point. You know, if you've been around for some time, it can raise 1 or 2 levels, but not a lot. You know, I mean, some.
Right.
But you're not going to get a completely different person.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's damage from the background, like from childhood or early teens, the damage is done.
Right.
You know, it's permanent and you can't overcome it, and it will manifest itself into things down the road.
Exactly.
So it's usually best to, you know, for lack of a better word, to kind of abandon ship as early on as possible.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not reparable.
And it's not fun for anyone.
No.
Why would you even want to be in that?
No, it will eventually show itself.
Yeah, unfortunately. I'm hoping, I mean, this has been a really, I mean, we went down like a million rabbit holes, but are all necessary and all feed to this, just keeping the boredom out of your relationships at every level, whether you are just getting to know girls, whether you're running in social circles, whether you're dating with a purpose, whether you're running a rotation of girls, whether you're working towards marriage, whether you're married, whether you've been married for 35, 40, 45 years. Boredom is a dream killer, and it's a relationship killer. It's the worst thing that can happen, and that's what we're trying to keep you from experiencing, because you can have, I mean, it just creates problems in every other area of life. I will say, as far as the sex stuff goes, Fuck Like a Porn Star and the Fuck Like a Porn Star course will help you greatly in getting girls to raise levels of sexual interest, enthusiasm, and comfort. So if you have trouble getting girls to like kind of turn it up a notch with you sexually, these are 2 great sources that you can use. Now, cheat code, if you've bought Fuck Like a Porn Star, you have gotten a discount code for the Fuck Like a Porn Star course that actually makes the Fuck Like a Porn Star book free. If you have not gotten that, please reach out to me. And if you purchase the Fuck Like a Porn Star course, you actually get the Fuck Like a Porn Star book in the process of that course. So both ways you can have a win-win scenario and raise women sexually to a closer level of interest and enthusiasm to you so that you can keep things exciting in the bedroom and outside of the bedroom. I'm excited today because Fort Worth joined me. This is an anomaly that I am very excited about. It was a lot of fun. And it's just a great topic, I think, where both of our perspectives and both of our kind of history go a long way.
Yeah.
Go a long way in helping more people keep boredom out of the bedroom and out of their relationships.
The number one sin is don't be boring.
Don't be boring. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whether you are in here live and have stuck with us for over an hour, thank you very much. We actually thought this was going to be about a 20-minute.
We're like, do we need a second topic? She's like, no.
Honestly, we thought this was actually going to be a pretty short show.
Yeah.
But it's such an important topic, and it truly is the number one sin of all things, whether it's professional or personal, is don't be boring. So thank you so much for joining us. If you want to follow us on Twitter, Worth Playboy, my Playboys Bunny, FortWorthPlayboy.com, myPlayboysBunny.com. Check us out all over the interweb. We've also got podcasts to launch, so we've been a little bit slim on that lately, but we've got some in the pipeline. So thank you for tuning in live or after the fact. We want you to win. Bye. Oh, man. Great show, baby.
Nice.
You are a rock star.